So for today's question from the floor, we've been asked, what are the types of training an organization can do to prepare its team for a crisis?
This is a really good question because there's not only a variety of activities and exercises that you can be done, there is also some specific training from a PR response perspective that we need to look at. So I'll address that first. There are 6 things I really strongly advocate training all of your teams in. 1, social media etiquette, making sure that they know how to respond appropriately, politely, and within the right tone that not only represents the brand, but also helps to control the narrative that you've got. Secondly, you look at social media business goals. I purposely look at what the business goals are because at the end of the day, whatever you put online is never going to go away. So you want to make sure that the responses that people are using, that your team are using during a crisis, meet those business goals as well, rather than just meet the goals of averting a crisis or trying to negate or quieten down during a period of crisis. You need to also train on social media management. This is to make sure that teams know how to work with the different platforms and address issues properly and in a way that is seen credible to your audiences. You want to train on politics of meaning, choice of words. Often even when a crisis isn't involved, but people or social media practitioners or teams within organizations are responding to social media, you often see ill-advised words online, or you see the same types of patterns, you see the same types of mistakes. It's very important that people understand the words that they're using and the tone in which they're using it. You also need to train for prompt activation. It's a crisis. You can't wait. It's not, let me go to the bathroom, I'll deal with this in 5 minutes. It's, how do I deal with it now? Because in 5 minutes, another 500 people may have bombarded your social media platforms, or maybe news media have contacted, or maybe there has been a development. And finally, you also need to train teams in particular for immediate supervisor contact. If something seems out of the ordinary, it's don't wait and see. It's raise the issue with a supervisor or somebody with more authority so that they can evaluate what would be the best course of action. Now let's turn to what you can do as an organization in terms of crisis training for your teams through preparation and through exercises. So there are actually 6 core types of training that you can focus on. One is crisis plan training. This is where you step your team or the relevant components of your team through the crisis plan, familiarize them with the scenarios, the type of activities that need to happen, the chain of command, any differences from day-to-day operations that will happen during a crisis, and you focus on that. This is a little bit textbook because it's simply passing them information. Secondly, you might want to do something that's called desktop exercises. Simple scenarios based on discussions in a familiar and a controlled setting. So, what would you do, Farrell, if this happened? And thinking through the answers, discussing it with a supervisor and so forth. This has benefits, but it's by no means particularly comprehensive. You can look at simulations. Just like at school when we had fire drills, or some of the businesses in the larger structures will have an annual fire drill. A simulation simply gives you the opportunity to look at a scenario and see and evaluate how your team respond to it. It may not be the entire team that are involved. It may be 3 or 4 people only, but what you're doing is you're putting them through a scenario that they do not realize is an actual simulation. You can look at process walkthroughs. This is not about understanding how to respond to the crisis per se. It's about understanding what is your role during a crisis and how do you go about making or taking those particular steps. Also, you can look at two types of training. One for media, in terms of making sure the spokesperson is able to communicate well with the media and come across in a credible, authentic, and valued way. And the final one is actually crisis leadership training, where you look at training the leaders how to respond to the challenges of a crisis. This is not about teaching leadership or imparting knowledge there, but it's about looking at leadership under pressure and the things that you can do to refine your behaviors so that you come across stronger to the community, to the media, and most importantly, you want to come across strong and credible to your own teams.